Ladies and gentlemen, aliens. Welcome to part 2 of Day 9 Daily number 497, where we're actually learning to be a better gamer. What? What? Huh? Of course we are. It's a Day 9 Daily. Bitches. I'm threatening. I'm a threatening, scary guy, and that's why I do a threatening, scary show of how to be threatening and scary on the internet via StarCraft 2 while being mannered in chat. You want that play to be terrifying. That's what I'm talking about. Let's talk about Zerg vs. Terran some more with this notion of swarm hosts. In part 1, thanks to the contribution of the wonderful Team Root, we got the chance to look, or as they would say in Atlanta, Team Rut. We got the chance to see the swarm host used in this cool fashion, the sort of dual spire swarm host, or excuse me, dual spire infestation pit play that's kind of commonly used in the current Zerg vs. Terran metagame, but is particularly strong because it's either air or detection for burrow. That's a difficult difference for players to deal with, and it certainly gives Zerg a nice little edge, and we saw Slush exploit that. Let's look at another game from Liquid Chef, where he's going to be up against not mech, but marine tank Marauder. And this will permit us to see how the swarm host kind of functions in those mid and late game situations. And again, it's not going to be Chef being a total douche and going for a one base swarm host rush against people, namely me, which he beat me with. Jerk. We're actually going to be looking at it in a kind of a later term style. And that's something that I'm hoping we get the chance to... I had a thought, and I lost it. Let's go into the game. A lot of my sentences were coming out really, really nicely, and then that sentence happened, and I just hit a mental brick wall. But you know what? As my experience on YouTube has taught me, watching people hit brick walls is prime entertainment. It's almost like a bell curve for the speed of hitting the brick wall. It's like, if it's too slow, the impact isn't interesting enough. If it's too fast, the person dies, and I don't want to see that. But if it's in the middle, where you see that he got hurt really bad, but that he's going to be okay, oh, email to friend. Excellent. So we're watching Chef versus Urk. I don't really know how to say that name, so I'm just going to call him Urk. Urk is quite a good player. He's been playing a lot with all the races on the ladder of Heart of the Swarm. He's one of those Heart of the Swarm regulars right now. So we now know that Liquid Chef is playing at 4 p.m. my time, as he lives in Florida. So let's go ahead and speed things up a bit. And given the fact that we're on pace for a little bit faster of a daily, we might get a chance to see a third game. I don't know. But this map is Alcan Wastes, maybe? I still don't know the map names very well, but I recognize them because I don't really pay attention to what it's called. Notable formations of this map, we have a natural expansion that's very awkwardly related to our ramp. This is a real pain in the ass. Protosses are then forced to wall here against Zerg and whatnot. It's a very fat ramp. And then we also have destructible rocks. So we have a second entrance. 10 pool openings are very potent on this map against Forge fast expanding Protosses as a result. Also 4 gates are just quite strong too against Terrans. But once we kill these rocks, we have a clearly takeable third. We can kill the collapsible rock tower to fill this up with destructible rocks. We also have another expansion up here, which is most commonly the third that I'm seeing Zergs take nowadays. It's just nicely tucked away. We can take it here. Can cause some interesting push angles where a Terran player pushes up here, secures his watchtower, and then pushes to here and sieges tanks, and then slowly runs Marines up here, and you get a little bit cramped. I've felt this cramping a lot when playing Zerg on the ladder. But, really cool. This, I think, is one of the most well-designed maps that I've seen in a long time. This map is just completely kick-ass. Love this map. But I'm only focusing on these first 4 bases for now. So let's see how Liquid Chef plays this one out. Again, I want to step into the shoes of Liquid Chef for a moment and just think about all the considerations Liquid Chef is going to have to make that are not the usual considerations. Because certainly we're going to have to think things like, is he attacking me? Is he not attacking me? Is he proxying me here? We see a kind of an excess of lings made. I'm not going to focus too much on that. We are seeing things like, oh, Sheth is making 4 queens. This will help him deal with things like Hellion pressure, like early Marine pressure. But again, those are typical plays. That's what would happen in Wings of Liberty as well. The big consideration that everyone's experiencing on the ladder right now is he doing mech or is he doing Marine, Marauder, Medivac? That's the big concern. So as we step into this situation, I want you to consider that quite strongly. Yeah, actually, we will go to the Liquid Chef Cam. Cool, so we see the Roach Warren coming up. Why the Roach Warren? It's very difficult to secure this as a third or this as a third. I will focus on that because that is something that is new to this map, which is a Heart of the Swarm map. So, yeah, so he is getting this Roach Warren in addition to the 4 queen play. Part of me feels like it would have been more efficient to build 1 queen and to build the Roach Warren earlier, allowing us to secure a slightly earlier third. But Sheth is doing the smart thing. Look at this, securing all 3 watchtowers. God, I love this map. I think this map is amazing. It has far and away been my favorite games on it. It was actually a really sweet game between the Little One and Pain User that I think HD StarCraft casted. Definitely chirk it erd. Liquid Chef poking up here. Okay, cool. Now, I'll note that I've been trying to hit the pause button, but I keep missing because I have one of those cool keyboards with no labels on it, and a lot of times I just whiff. Only in StarCraft can I hit things accurately. At this point in time, Liquid Chef only has the sort of supposition that his opponent is early expanding. There is a possibility that Urk may have gone for very fast cloaked Banshees. However, we would see that Banshee early enough with these 3 to be able to build that extra dude. And of course, sending these in and just seeing the fuming occurring on these minerals is enough to make us know that he has an expansion. Okay, so we see some Hellions. Is he expanding with Marine Marauder or is he expanding with Mech? We just don't know yet. But Sheth is doing like quite a conservative play. Roach and 4 queen and Zergling speed. Generally, you'll cut 1 of those. Sometimes 2. Nesty used to cut 2 of those and just go Roach with small queen count fast third. And he would, quite honestly, die relatively early. So what we're seeing Sheth do is he's actually getting a 3rd gas. Again, if you're ever under pressure and you can't expand, just take your gas geysers. Don't focus on the minerals of a new expansion. Focus on the gas of the existing expansions you have. So I'm actually going to remove this production tab for a moment. We're seeing Sheth. Okay, take the Evo chambers, take this hatch. Things are looking quite comfortable. He's going to kill these off. And around now is when we really need to know, as we're getting our layer, right around 9:30 is when the really big, scary follow-up pushes can happen. We'll have plenty of time to prepare for it, but 8:30 to 9 is when it's a reasonable time to float in Overlords. Interestingly enough, this is a timing that Zergs in the beta and early Wings of Liberty release are familiar with, because back then, Terrans would go mech. We don't really see a lot of Terrans going mech versus Zerg for about a year and a half. Now, recently, they're doing it again, but this is really the money timing against an early expanding Hellioning player. Around 8:30. Sometimes players like to go as early as 8 just to check up on a guy and see if he's going Banshee Hellion or some of that such shenaniganry. But cool, we come in here and notice the order that Sheth's going to spot this stuff in. He's going to see the double engineering bay. Okay, so we instantly know he's doing some sort of powering long-term focus. We see a reactor barracks, clear sign. We see 3 barracks. We see a late as hell starport. If we actually come to the full vision, we see that there is this 3rd orbital command here. If you see a starport not done yet, that's a surefire sign that he took a fast 3rd. this and this. It's just all indications that he's not attacking us by ground. Sheth actually took a 4th base in the midst of this. And it's significant to note because it's very easy for me to say something like, so since he knows he's not up against early pressure, he's going to take himself a 4th. But Sheth is literally just doing this. Boom. And a lot of this is because he's emphasizing these roaches. It's kind of a thing of the past to really focus on roaches in this matchup. Players like to use some roaches to step up into the next phase of the game. But we're seeing that suddenly, with the use of these swarm hosts, going roaches helps make sense. Because roach plus swarm host is kind of a good mix of the money. For instance, Ling Infestor makes a lot of sense because we spend all our gas on the Infestors and we have a ton of minerals left over. Bam, spending them all on Zerglings. Easy. If we're spending roaches, which is a pretty evenly distributed mineral gas cost, we'll have a pretty even mineral gas cost left over. Same story for the swarm host. So in terms of money, they mesh very well together, getting a lot of roaches and swarm hosts. It's not like if you go for roach infestor, where you still have a little money left over for lings and expansions and all that stuff. So getting these upgrades, and this is super cool. Also, focusing on the roach speed. Now, just to consider this, I actually think that the biggest benefit that we're going to gain out of going roaches at this point in the game is that we'll have speed on roaches, allowing us to secure this watchtower and this watchtower again. With just Zerglings against some Hellions, often they'll be building more Hellions if they're going mech, and they'll endlessly just run away from you, and you can't get secure control of the watchtowers. Here you can. And a macro hatch going up. And I think this is an essential piece to the puzzle, that macro hatch going down. I actually think it should have gone down a little earlier. So cool, we have roaches and pathogen glands going down. It's important to note that with this roach infestor play, yeah, you see this? We're taking watchtowers because we have speed. F yeah. For once I censored myself and said F instead of the. So at this point in the game, I guess I'd describe what Sheth is doing as kind of a purely defensive play. I mean, if you're going roach infestor, you're not doing it to just kill your opponent, right? I've never seen a Zerg player be like, alright, I have enough roaches and infestors to break that sieged bunker defense line. Yes, thank God I did my push breaker. It's generally the Broodlords or the Ultralisks or that sort of thing. So, yeah, so this seems like a fairly defensive mixture. And actually, whoopsie daisies, I missed something, so I'll come back and point it out. Upon the suicide of this noble overlord, Sheth does a really interesting thing. He starts building past 75 drones, which is honestly the stopping point in this matchup for drone production. He just starts going crazy with it. So as we speed ahead, oh no, the Sheth is still making more drones. He's gone mad. This is a super risky, super unstable play in Wings of Liberty. Why? Because we are still 4 minutes away from getting Broodlord tech or Ultralisk tech. That's the number to keep in mind. It's 4 minutes from the start of the Hive production to the end of Broodlord production. That is a very important number. So Sheth has 4 minutes of time. 4 minutes. How the hell do you do that? Well, right after pathogen glands are done, Sheth follows it up by getting the Enduring Locust upgrade. So here's a big push coming up. For any of you who didn't know, Roach Infestor with some lings is very good at dealing with small pushes. It's very good at just sort of dealing with it and delaying it, and of course Sheth floods roaches. Let's first look at Sheth dealing with this push. He does some really nice just holding the ground, and ordinarily Sheth would be required to stay back with all this roach ling and defend. However, thanks to, However, thanks to the fact that we have locusts, we have these swarm hosts, suddenly these counterattacks become super possible, which I think is kind of the cool thing in play. And again, these swarm hosts are serving as a stepping stone for us to get up to Hive. What was this army primarily designed for? This army was designed to deal with these small pushes that happen here. It was also designed to defend and get up 4 bases. But now, suddenly, that purpose has sort of been flushed away. So what do? We counterattack with it, and we can burrow our swarm hosts for defense. Now that I've said all that, and that seems to make a hell of a lot of sense, here's the follow-up issue. Many Zergs are realizing that these swarm hosts are the perfect tool to delay pushes. Imagine these burrowed. The tank marine here still trying to push down. Imagine them still trying to assault. The swarm host would be the perfect tool to delay it, to defer it, while we got up more units, while we did damage with these roaches. It would be the perfect delay device. But we can't deal with drops. This is what all Zergs are realizing nowadays. The swarm hosts don't have good drop defense. However, I will note, if we even come to here, right when we're in the middle of this push, dealing with it, as we decide to go counterattack, we could very easily spore, spine, spine, spine. Spore, spine, spine, queen, reposition here to inject larva. We can give it spore and spore. We could do that. We have the funds to be able to do it, and more importantly, we have the drone count to be able to do it. It's only, we are at, right now, we're at 1350. It's a full minute later that this attack is hitting our expansion and dealing all that frick ton of damage so tragically. Now, before we go on in the game, I want to point out one more thing. Coming back to here. Okay, cool. We're in here, and we have seen mega long-term play. He is going for double engineering bay. That already cuts in huge to his army value. He's probably taken a fast third. That already cuts in huge to his army value. So we know that there's not going to be a particularly brutal push by Urk in the next little bit. It's actually highly unlikely. So when this push comes at 13 minutes, we're fine. We've built all these kinds of extra drones, all this good stuff. And as I resume, I'll note that the only push that Urk could do at this point in time is a relatively small push, which is why we're able to deal with it with a relatively small army. Why did I go through all that? Because, coming back to the 10-minute mark, there's another possibility. We come in here, and we see that he is doing a huge amount. Actually, I'll even come back to 8 minutes. I actually need to be able to demonstrate this in its fullest. Speeding it up. He gets right around 9:30 when he starts to shoot on in there. Okay, so cool. We're taking our 4th base. There's something very key that happens here. We're taking our 4th base. We have under 75 drones. We're trying to make more. He can be doing some long-term play, which is what he incidentally is doing. What we're going to do now is we're going to step through the theory of how we would respond to differences in what the Terran would do. So, as we come in here, we're stepping in, and if we saw a lot of units, like a lot of barracks, we could just go for our Ling, Roach, we could get our upgrade for our speed, and we could just go for the Infestor tech. If we saw him going mech, we could just go Ling Roach and go into our Swarm Host tech, and we'd actually stop the drone production right then and there. We would just stick to our 5-hatch play. We would make a 5th hatch certainly there. So I just wanted to note those contingency plans, just so we were comfortable with the notion of why we have frickin' 92 drones here. Let's watch a little bit more and then we'll stop this segment. Notice how these swarm hosts are actually frickin' terrible for dealing with drops. Yeah, we did see the swarm host kill the drop off. But I repeat, these swarm hosts are freaking terrible because we have 5 swarm hosts here. That is 1,000 minerals, 500 gas to be able to deal with the medevac. And if we had just 1 or 2, it would drop, kill off the locust, and then kill off all our drones and scan and probably kill off our swarm hosts. Spine crawlers have a hell of a lot more life than the pretty feeble swarm host. So we see Liquid Chef dealing with the same struggle that every average bear will deal with. This tragic moment right now, where we just don't really have a way to deal with these drops. We had an expansion here, it got totally owned. Cool. So now suddenly we are in a siege situation. I'm going to stop it right here. This is the perfect time to take a break and go on to part number 3, where we're going to see what these swarm hosts do for us and how this shifts our usual understanding of what Zerg vs. Terran push logic is. My hair kicks ass. I'll see you in 2 minutes.